Welcome to the Virtual Power Teams podcast. And today we have an exciting guest, Norman Dilthey. Correct me if I'm wrong. He joins us from Germany, from Hamburg, I think. That's where we've met at least, although now I'm in Latvia and he will tell us where he is. But Norman brings three in one. He's the person who understands how to build software, so he has a software development background. He understands how to implement, and not just software, but AI. I know many people claim to be doing AI or to understand AI. He's actually doing it. So he's helping businesses to understand how to use AI and consult them. They develop concepts, and in the end, he helps them deliver those concepts. So welcome, Norman. And please tell us with your own words who you are and what you do.
Peter, thank you so much for having me, and what a kind introduction you just gave me. That was really nice. Yeah. So as you said, I'm a software developer. I'm 37. I focus on helping companies how they can implement AI. It's generative AI plus also some machine learning projects that I do. I'm actually based in Düsseldorf, but yeah, we did meet at a conference in Hamburg, which was a very interesting event. So looking forward to the talk.
Yes. And today you are in Düsseldorf?
I'm in Düsseldorf. Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
it's my hometown. So I traveled to the conference. Yeah.
Okay. So tell us why you do what you do, and then why AI?
Why do I do what I do? I think with many software developers, it's sort of an inner passion. So ever since I've been a kid, really, I like technology and I liked fiddling with things and trying things out and being kind of nerdy in a way and really diving deep into the technical parts. But I did enjoy sort of more business education. But then at some point in my career, I decided, okay, look, I want to actually do the software development full time. And what I love about software development is that you can actually build things, right? It's like you do something with your hands. I think carpenters or people who build like wood things and then furniture, etc., they might understand because you build something within the computer, and that is super exciting to me. And when I realized that aspect that I could build any idea that I have, it was so fascinating to me and so motivating. And I get the chills today when I talk about it because I just like building things. And now with AI, it is so powerful. It's incredible. And I think many people don't realize the potential, and they also don't use it yet. I'm so surprised when I hear people, when I ask them, have you tried ChatGPT? And they're like, oh, no, I've not tried it. I don't really know how to, or I've never really thought about it or whatever. And to me, ChatGPT or Claude or whatever other model has become second nature, basically. I use it every day in so many different places. And it's just amazing to see the possibilities that you have.
Yes.
And then yeah, sorry, I'm already talking a lot.
No,
I get excited.
It is. I feel your energy. I feel your passion for software development, for building software, and also for AI, and that's great.
Yeah.
Tell us before we go into the business world. And again, you've built business AI solutions, but tell us what was your most exotic or most exciting experience with AI? Maybe it's ChatGPT that you use it in an untraditional way and you got an amazing result. Or just funny result.
Man, there's so many examples. So initially when it came out, I think almost 2 years now, I thought there's this whole new world that is opening up with possibilities. And literally I woke up every day super early, being so excited, but not really knowing how I can use the technology. And so one of the things that I did, for example, I do is with BlendLane, it's one of my companies. We automatically generate match reports for sports games. So whenever there's a football game or a handball game, afterwards we automatically generate sort of a report of what happened during the match, and a little bit of an outlook, a little bit of a look backwards, what happened in the season, where's the team placed, etc. And when I was talking to a friend of mine who was a journalist, and I kind of pitched him this idea, his eyes would like open wide
Mm-hmm.
up and he'd be so
Mm-hmm.
excited. And I guess at the same time, having a bit of anxiety as well, because you think, oh my God, is this thing going to take my job? And then we started talking and, got into a project and we started generating these articles and they were like, wow, the thing is actually pretty cool. I mean, you can actually use this thing, right? You can use the stuff that's coming out of it and it saves us time. Yeah, but I mean, I use it for personal stuff, like
Yes.
relationship advice, for
No,
example.
no.
I use it, I mean, for daily planning, for grocery planning, for writing emails,
Yes.
for correcting emails, for structuring emails, for pretty much anything, that
Yes.
first thing right now in my mind is why don't you just put it into Claude or GPT and talk to it? I mean,
Yes.
it helps.
Yes. Yes. Likewise. Yeah. I mean, you're the guest now. I have also quite a funny experiences. Um, Tell us maybe in the business world now, give us a little bit of a flavor what you have done so far, and then we'll pick some examples and deep dive.
Yeah. I mean, the blend lane thing I already mentioned where we, generate these match reports. That's one of the projects I do. Another interesting one is for an American client that I have. He came to me and he asked whether it's possible to replicate a YouTube persona. So
Mm-hmm.
he has quite a few, I guess, famous YouTubers, and
Mm-hmm.
these YouTubers they get a lot of questions from their audience, and they
Mm-hmm.
don't, that's not their core business. It's not answering, questions from the community. So he was thinking, is it possible to build a chatbot that has the knowledge of the YouTuber, acts like
Mm-hmm.
the YouTuber, sounds
Mm-hmm.
like the YouTuber, has the
Mm-hmm.
knowledge of the YouTuber, and then can answer and chat to the community.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was a very, very interesting project. And that uses retrieval augmentation,
Yes.
the RAG, that people
Mm-hmm.
talk about, and is a very powerful and yeah, very, very interesting concept.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
How far are
so
you
yeah,
on
what
this
we did is
project? Mhm. Sorry to interrupt. How far are you on this project with the YouTuber act and
yeah.
sound and look like?
So the development from my side is actually done. It's just
Mm-hmm.
there's another developer building the front end, so we kind of separated the task a little bit. Um, he is planning to launch this week, so I'm excited whether that's actually going to happen. It's
Okay.
called W.ai. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
let's see. We will see how successful that project will be and whether the
Yes.
community will accept it. Because
Yes.
I'm probably going to go into it. There's challenges with RAG, right? It's not that you just push a button and everything works magically.
Yes.
What some people think happens with AI. Anything can be done with AI. Yes, it's kind of true, but you have to take care of the details as well.
Yes. Yes. The devil is in the detail, but the delight is
Yeah,
also in the detail.
the
So
delight is also
please,
there. Yeah,
we will share the link that you mentioned with the audience in the podcast notes. Um, You mentioned RAG several times. Maybe for the audience, RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation, right? Correct me if
yeah,
I'm
exactly.
wrong. And it's very popular, particularly now, many use cases, corporate, big corporate and medium, they build their own chatbot, which is linked to ChatGPT, but also through this RAG technology, it can access their own data and capture it and
Yeah,
take all the wisdom that they stored internally. Tell us a little bit about the architecture without going too technical so the audience can
yeah,
understand, and maybe we'll deep dive in one of the cases. So what were the benefits in the end?
yeah, sure, sure. So if you chat to a large language model at the moment, like GPT or Claude or Gemini, and you would ask it something like, what were my quarter 4 sales in 2022? Obviously, it's not going to know that unless maybe your company is listed and it's public and all that information is available. But if you're sort of a private company, it's not going to know that because it was trained on publicly available information. So then you have different options of sort of coaching the model or training the model on this new information or internal information. There's different ways to do that. I'm pretty sure most of the audience, what they have done before is they would input something into the prompt, like for example, I have an email. Here's the email. Please reformat it or write it in a nicer tone or do the spelling correction. So you put that kind of that context into the prompt, and then the LLM knows about the information that you are talking about. retrieval augmentation works in a similar way. So you have your sort of your database that contains all your documents or whatever information that you want it to be in there. And then you can pick certain information from that database and basically put that into the prompt. That's essentially what it does. It puts it into the prompt, and then you can ask it, okay, what were my quarterly sales last year? So it fetches the information from your knowledge database, it inputs it into the prompt, and then, it can answer the question because it has that context information now that it didn't have before. On a very high level, that's what retrieval augmentation does.
Yes. And when probably some of the audience have the security concern, if you put it into the prompt and then it goes to the chat GPT, how do you address security and confidentiality?
Yeah, it is a very, very big topic, especially here in Germany. Data privacy laws are extremely strict. Now, what these frontier model providers like ChatGPT and Claude, they do is they say, if you use our services via the API, an API is just basically the programmatic interface to use the model, then it is GDPR compliant. So they say, it's your data is protected. It's not going to be used for training or any other purposes. Now, whether you want to believe that or not is on a different page. And I think some people in Germany who are very strict about data privacy say that's not enough for me. Then there's other options, right? You don't have to use these large frontier models. You can also use open source model, like Mixtral, for example, or one of the Llama models. Now, the Llama models, they have a bit of a disadvantage because they're trained mainly on English language and they tend to switch to the English language. But something like Mixtral works very well. And once you have these open source systems, I mean, you can host them wherever you want to. So you could host them on your own server infrastructure. You would have complete control over the data. It does not leave your own system. Fetch it from your SAP database, put it into your server that hosts the LLM, and then build a front end, to interact with the system. So there is ways around that, but everyone has to be aware that if you go down that data privacy route, it's just going to cost more money, unfortunately.
Yes.
But
yes.
there is ways to do it.
Thank you. I know I've been in discussions with Mercedes and Daimler, and they use a lot of these open source models and having the full control. On the other hand, it takes a lot of compute to train the model to the right level, and ChatGPT did a brilliant job, and now the others are catching up. Now, if you take Mistral and Llama, can you comment on the quality in terms of, there are certain benchmarks and so on, but what is your personal impression on the quality of the response?
Yeah. The benchmarks, I mean, they do give you an indication. And yes, it's true that, these frontier models, they perform the best. However, I think for most of the applications that you will see on a day-to-day basis in a business, Mixtral and Llama are perfectly capable of your use cases. You're going to see some differences in quality, but to me, it's like 95% versus 100%. So it's a bit of a trade-off. However, you do get the benefits of the data privacy. Plus, it might even be a lot cheaper, depending on how much you use these frontier models.
Excellent. I've been recently across different use cases for, chatbots with RAC, including in the Middle East, the whole municipality building their own kind of LLM and use it also for producing, if you wish to draft policies and laws and so on based on the existing knowledge and external. But tell us maybe a list of top 3 of the implementations that you kind of took part, so we could deep dive a little bit to see what was the scope, what was the benefit.
Are you talking specifically about chatbots or generative AI?
Let's start
projects?
general, and please include at least one chatbot, because it seems to be the very popular thing that companies start.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic why companies always start with a chatbot, but maybe that's a different conversation. Where should I start? So one interesting project was here in Germany, the bureaucracy is pretty crazy sometimes. And there's lots of manual things that are happening. And I think it's very important to always think about how can technology help me in my business? And one of the things that we do is there's student application forms for the public transport sector here in Germany. And these are literally like handwritten forms that students fill in. And then there's people who print these forms, they sit in front of a computer and they type them into another system. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, there's a person like pretty much fully employed doing that. And there's ways to train open source models. It's not an LLM, it's just an AI model to be able to read these forms and then extract the handwritten information from those forms. It sounds like a very, very boring project, and it kind of is, but still, like when you tell this to people and the people who are like manually filling or reading these forms and filling it into a different system, their eyes light up as well, and they think, "Wow, this is actually possible." And so I'm a big fan of also looking at the very basic processes that you have in your organization and thinking about, okay, how can I automate these things?
Can you tell us just the flavor of this one? How much time it took to develop, and if you can, usually it's confidential, but maybe a bit of the budget, and maybe dimensions. How many applications we're talking about? Like 10 million or 100?
Yeah. So you do speak about how to handle remote teams as well quite a bit on your podcast, I believe. Yes. Or that's where it's originated from, right? And it's very interesting because what I do is I actually work with international freelancers. So for this very project, I was trying to find a person who is very, very skilled with OCR systems. And I found someone
optical character recognition. Yeah?
Yes, exactly. Sorry. Yes. Yeah, exactly. So the machine way of reading a PDF and then putting that into machine text. And there's a person from Vietnam who helped me with this project. And it was not too expensive to build it. Let's put it that way. And it took the whole process took about 6 weeks, I would say. However, if we most of the time was actually spent trying to get the data from the client. So that's often the most difficult thing. Like they actually need to give us some data so that we can train the AI. But the training in itself and building the code, it's not hugely complex. So that might have taken 2-3 weeks. So that was pretty quick. And the results, we used, I think it was only 300 documents that we used for training. And it achieved an accuracy of, I think it was 82%, reading the written forms. But that's only 200 forms that we used. So if you multiply that by 10, I'm pretty sure you can go to 90-95% accuracy in these models.
Excellent. And the client is from the public administration?
Yeah, it's one of the public transports companies here in my area. So yeah, I sort of stumbled into this industry and now I'm working for them. It's actually due to chatbots. So since the audience is quite interested in that, maybe I can say a few words regarding it as well. There's a company called VoiceFlow, which you probably heard of. It's kind of a no-code platform that helps you develop chatbots. And it's becoming pretty popular. It's an American company, startup / company. And it also allows you to do retrieval augmentation, for example, in their process. So you can add URLs to the system, you can add documents to the system, and then it does the whole chunking process for you. For the audience, chunking is basically splitting your documents into small little pieces because you cannot always put your entire knowledge database into the LLM. And then it also, in a no-code way, allows you to plug and play different sort of conversation steps together. And it even allows you to implement that bubble on your website. So it's quite a nice tool to get started and to get a first feel for retrieval augmentation.
Can you give us some dimensions how long it takes to implement?
That's very, very quick. So
Mm-hmm.
if you know what you're doing and you have, let's say, 10 documents and you want to build a very simple conversation design on top of those documents, it takes a few hours. So it's
Mm-hmm.
very, very quick. Because I mean
Mm-hmm.
that platform is made for people like me or you,
Mm-hmm.
who can just like click together different parts for a conversation, and this should now access the knowledge database, this shouldn't access knowledge base, this should just ask for the name. Once you have the name, ask for the topic. If you have the topic, then go to the knowledge database. So you can kind of do these if else
Mm-hmm.
logics in there pretty quickly. So it's a
Mm-hmm.
nice way to start playing around with it.
And is it a size issue? If you have like a mid-size or big company with their kind of big CRM or customer, all sales and customer data, and then the ERP and
Mm.
so on, you'd like to include these databases. Will it
Mm.
do a job? And how would you tackle a bit of bigger clients?
Bigger clients. I think the biggest challenge in retrieval augmentation is actually the retrieval part. So what the
Mm-hmm.
retrieval stands for is you have a big knowledge base of information. You dump all your PDFs in there, let's say, and all your Word files
Mm-hmm.
and PowerPoints. Now, what the system does is creates embedding, so-called embeddings for your documents. So the first step is you split the documents into little pieces, and then you embed those pieces. And embedding means you create a mathematical representation of the semantic meaning of your
Mm-hmm.
chunk. And that's where kind of the trouble starts,
Mm-hmm.
because how the process works is that you type in a question. Let's say, what were my, the example from the beginning, quarterly sales last year. And let's say you have one chunk in your database that says Q3, and then it has some numbers in it, but then it gets cut off right in the middle before the
Mm-hmm.
total, and that's in
Mm-hmm.
a different chunk. And now the system has to sort of figure out that it should use both chunks, the one where it says Q3 at the top and the one where it just says total, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where it becomes actually very, very tricky for the system to really understand what you're asking for, and then finding the most relevant pieces of information in your database to then put that into the prompt. Now, I don't think it's a big problem to have a lot of documents. Now, there's some indexing strategies, when you use Pinecone or Superbase or whatever vector database that you want to choose. I think, yeah, I think the biggest hurdle or the biggest challenge is to make the retrieval process
Mm-hmm.
perform very well. And then there's strategies for that. But yeah, that's where the
Yes.
devil is really in the details. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think someone at the conference in Hamburg said CEOs love AI, and then
Mm-hmm.
CTOs, they're kind of like, whew, they need to take a breather because they're the ones who
Yes.
actually need to implement it, right?
Yes. Yes.
So the
Yes.
idea
Yes.
of having this internal search system, where you can say, like, I want to, or even aggregate some numbers, or who was the last lead I contacted for my product XY? How many calls have I had? What was his last sentence? These things
Mm-hmm.
are possible,
Mm-hmm.
but a challenge to implement.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
it's an interesting challenge to
Mm-hmm.
try and solve.
Maybe just to look a little bit for a moment in the roles. So, what would be the roles in terms of competencies? Are these data scientists and so on to help you resolve this challenge, the retrieval part, and making sense of embeddings?
Mm.
Who are the
Mm.
hot people in this case if there is a lot of demand on the market?
That's a good question. I think in general it's a very good idea for every software developer to upskill in this area and read as much as they can about this topic, because I'm not an AI engineer per se,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I probably, or I would have a tough time sort of developing an AI completely from scratch, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not my specialty. But what I can do is, I can listen to a business person talking and trying to understand their challenges, and then figuring out, okay, what technologies can we use to solve that? So I think someone who's quite general and has a general understanding of the possibilities with AI, both machine learning and generative AI. And if you want to go more into detail, like what I said with the challenges of RAG, for the embedding part, for example, you can train your own text embedding models, for example. So this is where you get more into the area of, okay, you might actually need someone who is an AI engineer. However, even as I did it with my other projects where for the student forums, there is people out there that you can, basically hire as a freelancer. That's their expertise, and you can brief them with these tasks. To be honest, I think 99% of the use cases that companies have will be solvable without building a new AI or training from scratch or whatever. Because they are so powerful.
Yes. Let's have one more kind of case study, and then we will take a lens on the people involved, just for the audience to get a flavor of, what kind of expertise is needed. But first, one more.
Yeah, I mean, it's the obvious ones that you would have in a project, but from a technical perspective, I think you would be good with a full stack developer, who can build front end, back end, and potentially someone who's more into the AI training part.
No, I meant give us one more case study, in general.
Oh, one more case study.
Another use case with a real client. That's what we're interested.
Yeah, so it's quite a funny story. When I was playing tennis, I was talking to an attorney, and we got started chatting, and I told him what I do, and he said he has quite a few ideas. And what we're doing now is, I'm not sure if I can tell too much about it, but one AI part or generative AI part that we're using is they get a lot of mail in the sort of physical mail that's from clients, and then it's a big challenge for them, one, to route the mail properly. So they have many different employees within that agency. So person has to open the letters, read it, and then say, okay, this is for this guy, this is for that woman. So this is something you can automate. So you would scan the PDF. You would use OCR to read what's in the letter, and then use an LLM to decide, okay, let's classify this mail. Is it for person A? Is it for person B? And then to go another step further is there's many insolvency cases here in Germany. There's a quite a strict insolvency law, and you would get like a huge folder of mail at once, for handling this one insolvency case. So there's one person literally sitting there for days, reading the mail and trying to figure out, okay, for every single piece of paper they get, who is it from? What is the account details that we should transfer money to? How much do they owe? Who's the debtor, etc. So this is something also you can use an LLM for to extract the information from the mail, and then put it into a structured form, and then deal with it in a further step, however you really want to. So we would take a huge load of work off of these people to not handle the mail manually anymore.
Excellent.
And
Excellent.
and again, it's such a simple thing, right? It's such a simple thing. But yeah, these LLMs, they are so powerful that they can handle these general cases. Yeah. Another interesting thing, actually, which just popped into my mind, is agents, AI agents, right?
Yes.
I think it's a huge topic at the moment. And so for the blend lane stuff, where I generate these sport articles, one thing that has to be avoided at all costs is hallucination. Right. And it sort of ties into retrieval augmentation at the same time, because when you ask it a question, what were my quarterly sales last year? You don't want it to hallucinate, because they will. And when I say they, I mean the LLM, right? They will just come up with a random number if you're not careful. And it's going to sound so logical, and it's going to sound like it's all true, but it's actually completely invented. And agents really help in that regard. So we input sort of lots of statistics and play-by-play data into the LLM. And then we have another LLM that's sort of the controlling agent. And it has some rules that are specified. And then what happens is, so we have a writer LLM and then a controller LLM, and they sort of pass the ball to each other,
Yes.
right? Controller says, okay, please start writing an article now. Use this data for it. And it passes back to the controller. The controller runs through its rules and says, okay, are the statistics all covered? Is anything invented? And then goes back to the writer again and says, okay, please fix that. Write it in a bit of a different tone, create another paragraph at the end, etc. And it's amazing. To me, it's absolutely amazing to see how that works. Two LLMs talking to each other, and I just have to hit a button and it works. It's like, wow.
Yes. Let's look at this one. Andrew Ng, one of the pioneers. I mean, the people who follow AI, he's one of the pioneers and gurus in this area, particularly for small, medium businesses. He has many models that could be quickly adapted. And there was a TED talk from him talking about this agent-to-agent conversation being a game changer. If you tag two ChatGPT-3 agents talking to each other, you can get quality of ChatGPT-5 who is not on the market. They multiply their smartness. And they can speak much faster. You don't have to type or so on. We need time to say or type. They can talk in a different language. You can tell us much faster and exchange the information and add value and improve quality. So in this particular case, just out of curiosity, you can put these rules that you put in the agent 2 in the first agent to control himself, but apparently it's not enough. Why do you need a separate controlling agent in order to get better quality?
Yeah. It's a great question. And it's about how the generation in the generative AI actually works. It's because these models, they have sort of an awareness of the tokens which were generated previously. So most of the audience probably has heard of chain of thought prompting.
Maybe explain in a few words this, ask him step by step what we'll do before.
Exactly. So in your prompt, you say, rather than let's take an example. So you would want the AI to classify an email. Is it customer support, or is it a cancellation, or is it a sale? And you also want to formulate a great answer. And then once that answer is formulated, you want to rewrite it in a more stricter tone. So you have like 3 or 4 steps that you want to do. Now, if you were to just put that into a prompt and say to this, the AI will do something. It will probably do a relatively good job. However, if you ask it to say, think step by step, and in every step, write out what you were thinking, like literally, put in, okay, first step, I need to think about what kind of category of email this is. To determine what kind of category this is, I can think of different areas within the business. So it would actually literally write out this in your answer. And now when the LLM writes this out, for the next token it generates, it has that context it basically created itself, right? So it kind of gives itself instructions in a way.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because it wrote its own instructions in the previous steps. That's kind of how that it helps an LLM to answer questions.
Yes. And token, for the audience, these are these symbols which, as ChatGPT give you the answer, it's not give you the text immediately, but step by step it generates it real time.
Exactly.
Token is whatever, 4 to 6 symbols or something. This is the next unit that is generated.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. And interesting perspective now as the agents become smarter, and it's very easy to create your own custom GPT, for example, and put some context and so on. They become smarter and more independent. I bet they will be becoming like a separate team member, being specialized in a particular area and so on. How would you you are a builder, software developer and architect if you wish, but how would you advise managers to kind of integrate this getting even smarter kind of agents, if you have any idea on the change management side, so people can embrace them and not kind of try to stop them as soon as possible?
This is such an interesting question, and this I don't know which countries you travel to regularly, but here in Germany, unfortunately, there's a big resistance against new technologies,
Mhm.
and it's always this notion of let's be very careful with everything and put in rules, and we have the AI Act, and we're the first ones to have this AI Act. And while it's very sensible to be careful and to create sort of a bit of regulation, but at the same time, I think it's extremely important to experiment because these LLMs, they are black boxes in the end,
Mhm.
right? With traditional software development, you could say, okay, I'm going to define my business rules. I'm going to implement the business rules in code. And when I put an A, I know B is going to come out,
Mhm.
right? With LLMs, that's not the case. The business rules are kind of derived in that LLM part. So I always tell my clients, let's build a POC, let's give it a try and see what is the outcome. How good is the outcome? Let's see the quality. And 9 out of 10, the quality is to such an extent that people say, okay, this is actually pretty good. We can work with this. Because the expectation is most of the time it's not that it has to be 100%. To get rid of the fear, to be honest, the same answer is
Mhm.
give it a try, use it in your day-to-day life, try and improve your processes, become more efficient using AI. So as a developer, for example, what used to take 3 days now takes a day because
Mhm.
it can write so much code for you and it's so fast. I
Mhm.
mean, there's these development environments. This goes a bit technical, but you tell it what you want and it knows your code base. It can create files. It can delete code parts. It can add stuff, change stuff. It's incredible.
Mhm.
And I think if you don't use it, you're going to get left behind at some point in time.
Mhm.
And I think the earlier you start, the better.
Yes.
So, and there's so much potential. There's so much potential, and you just have to get your hands dirty, give it a try.
Mhm.
Ask for help, start reading, watch YouTube videos, try it out. Just do it, kind of in a way. Yesterday you
Mhm.
said tomorrow, just do it. I love that sentence from Nike. Right? Just do it.
Mhm. Just do it. Excellent. Excellent. Maybe two last questions. By the way, you mentioned the YouTuber and the use case, creating it sound like, look like, and so on. Are you planning to have like avatar or somebody who will be the Norman
Like
AI
me.
who has no knowledge and speaks and acts like you?
I have thought about this many times
You
because
can go to Bahamas.
yeah, that would be nice, right? No, I absolutely I actually love working and then I love this technology part. So I wouldn't want something else to automate me entirely. But
Yes, yes,
having said that, some parts of your life, it would be very nice to automate. For
yes.
example, just today, I was using a tool called SEO bot from someone who's very active on Twitter. And Twitter is actually a very good place to start reading because there's like really sort of top-notch people there, and it's very new and it's very fast, and you can learn a lot of nice things. Um, and the SEO bot that he built is it analyzes your website and looks for competitors, tries to find interesting topics that you could write about. It does keyword research for you. It does the fact checking automatically. It checks for hallucinations, etc. And then it starts writing articles for your website. I mean, how
Amazing.
crazy is that? It
Let,
it's like a person that does it for you. And if you take an agency, they charge 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 euros a month for that.
mhm,
Now
mhm.
it's an agent or yeah, it's many different agents that work together, and that guy built that. I
Yes,
mean,
yes.
how cool is it?
Amazing. Let's share this SEO bot. If you have a link,
Yeah, sure,
please, we'll share
sure,
with the audience.
will do.
Um, Excellent. By the way, I'm creating my own avatar. A friend of mine in Bulgaria, he has a company who's been doing avatar for like experts, and
Yeah,
he recently got solid funding. And I upload all my books and articles, and even from workshops, public workshops, and open seminars, even the video.
yeah,
So he will kind of parse. digest all this structured and unstructured data. And then if people ask, it will be also integrated on Viber. People can ask and get a response. If you're not happy,
perfect.
it could escalate to me. So it's coming up. I mean, this digital twin in this area are coming and much more offering in this space.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Maybe you mentioned you manage this, for example, freelancer, the Vietnamese and others. Tell us, originally this podcast was about building powerful virtual and hybrid teams, and still is. Give us your advice to leaders who manage remote people. What would be your top advice to be successful managing people remotely?
Mm-hmm. I think what probably most people say is very, very transparent and clear communication about your expectations.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what I've learned in the past couple of months is patience, because and sort of your own expectation management in a way as well. I think I have very, very extremely high expectations, and it's hard to deliver on those expectations if you're in a very remote team with someone you've never met and someone who's very far away, lives in a different country, has a different culture, etc. So I think being patient, being kind, is very, very important. And structure, really structure, using a Kanban board in Notion or Trello or whatever. I use Slack for direct communication quite a lot. Most of these freelancers, they don't really like to be on the phone too much. So, written communication is very important. Time tracking, something that has to happen, unfortunately, with freelancers. But yeah, generally it's the very clear communication of your expectations, I think, is the most important.
Excellent. That fits with, I'm part of running remote community. I spoke on some of their events in Bali and Lisbon and so on. And once they were asking 500 founders of fully remote companies without office from day one, what's the number one skill? And then they were doing this word cloud from the mobile, putting input in the middle. Bigger was over communicate, which falls into your category. Clear expectations, structured communication.
Yeah.
Tell them why we do what we do, particularly if it's not like in your case, these are freelancers, but it may be a company which they work full time. So they need to know why they do what they do. And then what is the overall goal we want to achieve with this task? Don't just give the task in isolation. And make sure they understand somehow. And this over communicate up front, is a good investment of time later on. You don't have rework, people don't bug you or their peers,
100%.
they could. Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah. So I've worked in companies where, we were employed as normal employees and we were working remotely. And it definitely has its challenges, especially when it comes to the emotional attachment towards a company. So I can maybe just give a very, very short story. When I was working in my first company, it was an agency, media agency, and we were all sort of in the office and we were doing lots of things together. And then we went to a festival together, and we brought these banners from our company, and we went to the first row at the concert, and we took a photo with the banners of the company. That's how much we identified with that company, right? It's really emotional attachment to that company. I think that's quite hard to achieve when you're fully remote all of the time. So I'm sort of leaning towards that it would be nice if you could come to an office and meet in regular intervals. It doesn't definitely not every day, but something like, once a week or once every 2 weeks, in a regular interval is very, very important for the human connection, I think, in general.
Yes.
Remote does work, but that's the one downside it has.
Yes. I mean, those companies that succeed, and there were even one company, 10,000 employees, fully remote, Canadian, they have twice a year a retreat, and it's like a best practice. Sometimes even more often, they flew in at some nice location in the world, and they spent like a week usually resolving problems, connecting on a personal level. Don't look at PowerPoint and so on. Everything, all the reports, performance is clear up front. They know it. They have dashboards. There is, if you, for example, don't deliver your sales number and you drop, people know it already. How can I help you? So they really engage on an emotional level, but these retreats help a lot. And then on a weekly basis, you have numerous ways to connect, from building your avatar, being creative, the pet of the week, the cat of the week, and so on, sharing some funny things. They decide on the topic through some having like a check-in VR session. Recently, I worked with one company. They use VR to connect on a kind of 3D level with the VR where you are located to the other and so on makes a difference. So somehow they have this face-to-face in a nice place. And also on a weekly basis, they have different ways to communicate on a human level, which has nothing to do with the job. And I think we will be forced probably to work more remotely, and those ideas and methods will come handy. Last question. Take your crystal ball, polish it. What do you think is the ultimate frontier of AI? Where it will reach?
Good question. So people, the biggest question is always, will it take my job? Will it be dangerous at some point? And when I look at what agents can do already, they are extremely powerful. And when AIs talk to each other, they can be pretty creative. Man, it's a very hard question to answer, but I'm so excited about the next 5-10 years.
Give us your passionate answer. You're a believer, an evangelist.
Yeah, I think jobs are going to dramatically change. People are going to, work more in a strategic fashion. All other tasks will be automated in, I think, 10 years latest. Mainly working creatively. Most of the grunt work will be done by AI. And we have to be, I think, careful if an AI would get access to the internet and, sort of this worst case scenario deploy into some kind of data center or whatever, because they are very powerful. So they have to be contained. But I believe in the good that it can do, and I'm very positive about it. And I think if all people were to understand its potential and then be as excited or even half as excited as I am, we can all use it for good and automate a lot of things in our lives that we don't want to do.
Excellent, fantastic. By the way,
very interesting times we live in.
Yes, we are lucky ones. I think Sam Altman, on one of the people who shape AI, said by 2030, so in like 6 years, 80% of the jobs will be to 80% automated by AI, will be absolutely given to AI. That was one of kind of 80-80 indication. And you mentioned, some things AI can do for you in the coding, but you love it. Another recent study from Harvard, companies like Klarna, for example, the Swedish fintech, which is used for payment and e-commerce, they introduced a chatbot for customer service, and it handles 2/3 of their demand on a better customer satisfaction rating, like 2 million demands. And now they are laying off people, like 2/3 go from the customer service. So they already replace jobs by AI. And the people that remain use it smartly. But Harvard discovered that companies who are the early adopters and successfully manage and improve the profit line, the people that stay and don't have administrative work, funny enough, they feel isolated. There is a gap in the moment. Some of this work may be mundane, but if you take it out, somehow maybe it kind of reduces opportunity for human communication and so on. So to reinvent ourselves will be a challenge, Taking out the routine work, how can we express ourselves to retain the level of happiness and fulfillment? That would be a big challenge.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the rate of change is so incredibly fast, and it's gonna be a big challenge for us to adapt at nearly the same pace. But it's a very interesting time.
Fantastic. Thank you, Norman. Great insights, practical insights from the kitchen. Thank you for joining us.
Peter, thank you so much for having me. Have a great day.